Hello, hello everyone. We're about to start. We're just making sure that the sound is well working for everyone. Okay, it seems it's working. So I think we will soon start our webinar. Thank you all for joining us today for a bit more about the B4B Plus Club, or Business for Positive Biodiversity Club. Maybe just a few general information before we start on how we will work during this webinar. So during the webinar, you won't be able to speak or put your camera on. But you can always use the question and answer session on Zoom. If you have any questions during the webinar, we will make sure to answer your questions at the end of the webinar. We will have a dedicated session and also along the webinar in written. You have here a quick overview of today's program for our webinar. So we will start with a bit of context on who we are, why we are working on biodiversity footprinting and the solutions we developed. And then we will detail one part of what we offer, which is the B4B Plus Club. And you will learn more on what the club is about, why you might want to join the club. We will highlight also some of our major achievements and explain how to join the club. And then we will have two members of the club joining us, Marie-Morgane Grebent and Lionel Heurtin, and they will share their testimonies also on the club as club members. And as I said, we will close with a bit of time for questions. But so let's start with the first few words on who we are. So at CDC Biodiversité, we are a private subsidiary of the Caisse des dépôts et consignations group, which is the largest public financial institution in France. We are acting as a consulting company dedicated to conducting action to halt and reverse biodiversity loss. And historically, we were mostly engaged in renaturation actions and supporting private actors in their restoration activities. But a few years ago, we also decided to enlarge our offer, not only by supporting companies for their restoration action, but also to measure the impacts of companies and financial institutions and their dependencies on biodiversity, with the objective to help them define tailored actions to reduce their impacts. And so, as I said, CDC Biodiversité is focused on tackling the biodiversity crisis, but you may also wonder why this is so important. And so just a few words on biodiversity. So as you may know, biodiversity represents all the living components of our planet, from genes to ecosystems. And this living tissue is the basis of many ecosystem services we depend on, such as quality of our air, quality of the water we consume, quality of our soil and pollination for agriculture, for example, or climate regulation. And so as humans, we are all part of biodiversity and we can't live without it. But what we see at the moment is that biodiversity is declining at an unprecedented rate, and it puts at risk our society and also our economies, because it has been estimated that 50% of the global GDP depend heavily to moderately on ecosystem services, as you can also see on the slide. And so the erosion of biodiversity challenges the provision of ecosystem services and thus our economies. And considering also this biodiversity crisis, what we have seen in the past years is that the biodiversity topic is rising in the international agenda and that the landscape is structuring itself. In December 2022, there was the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that was adopted, which is the equivalent to the Paris Agreement for climate. And so this was a major step because this agreement defines clear targets we need to reach at the international level to reverse and then halt biodiversity loss. And these targets are now also reflected in regulatory requirements and that are valid for companies and financial institutions. And so these actors now also have to report on extra financial data. And when it comes to biodiversity, they have to report on their impacts and dependencies on biodiversity. At the EU level, for example, this is the case with the Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directives, which is concerning more and more companies and will continue to concern more companies in the future. And also for financial institutions, this is the case because of the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. We also saw a few enabling framework emerging, such as the SBTN or the TNFD, to help frame and define how to properly disclose information on impacts and dependencies on biodiversity. And so in this context, it's critical for companies to define and understand their relationship to biodiversity in terms of impact, but also dependencies, and this in order to be aligned also with all these emerging frameworks and to take action to adapt and ensure resilience of their activities. And and this is in this also context that we have developed the GBS, and that the GBS is the Global Biodiversity Score. It's a biodiversity footprinting tool, and it's a tool that can help you also in your journey to halt and reverse biodiversity loss. The GBS development started in 2015, and back to back with the start of the work on the GBS, we also created the B4B Plus Club with the idea to also tailor the GBS to the needs of its future users. And we were able to officially release the GBS in 2020 and then start also performing biodiversity footprinting assessment based on the GBS. And since 2020, we have continuously improved and developed the GBS. So we are at the moment at the version 1.5.0 of the GBS, and we continue to try to improve our tool. And we also have a large now team dedicated to work on the GBS and biodiversity footprinting, as we are over than 20 people now involved in the team. When we developed also the GBS, we had in mind that for it to be useful, it should be used by a large ecosystem of actors, going from companies, consultants, and financial institutions, but also academics. And so we also developed many activities to work with all these actors, either to train them to use the GBS, but also to perform biodiversity footprint assessment with the GBS. And so we really are convinced that we need to have this broad ecosystem of actors using the GBS if we wanted to make a difference for the consideration of biodiversity in companies' strategies. And so we have also adapted the GBS to the needs of the different stakeholders we work with. So, for example, for financial institutions, we have developed solutions for non-listed assets and listed assets. For non-listed assets, so we basically use the GBS, but with a methodology a bit adapted to the types of data we mostly are able to work with for non-listed assets. And for listed assets, we developed a specific database with Carbon for Finance, which allows to also measure the biodiversity impact and dependencies of listed assets. And for companies, so we are able to perform biodiversity footprint assessments using the GBS. And we are also at the moment working on new developments for local authorities, so also a bit adapting the GBS to the types of data local authorities work with. And so maybe to go a bit further, just a quick presentation on what the GBS will allow you to measure. So first, it would allow you to measure your impacts, but also your dependencies on biodiversity. And you would be able to do this across your entire value chain. So looking at your scope 1 impact, so the impacts of your direct activities, to also the impacts of your scope 2 and scope 3, so also of your purchases. We would be, to do this, we would be using your activity data, and we can use several types of data. It can go from financial data to inventory data or pressure data. And then we have a model that allows us to transform this data into impact data on biodiversity. We are able also to look at your impact and dependencies, accounting for 4 of the 5 main pressures on biodiversity that are identified by the IPBES, the International Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. So in the GBS, we can look at impacts related to land use change, overexploitation of resources, climate change, and pollution. And we can look at this in terms of terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. The only pressure we are not able to cover yet is the one related to invasive alien species. And we also do not cover yet marine ecosystems. And so with the GBS, you will have all your results in terms of impacts expressed in a specific metric, which is called the MSA square kilometers. The mean species abundance metric, which is a metric that will give you an indication of the level of integrity of ecosystems. And so if you measure your biodiversity footprint with the GBS, this will allow you to get a comprehensive view of your impacts and dependencies, as I said, across your entire value chain, and also to analyze where these impacts come from. So on this slide, for example, you have an overview of some results you could get with the GBS. And so you would be able, thanks to the results, to check if your impacts come from specific activities, which pressures are the cause of most of your impacts, etc., and have a clear understanding of your impact and dependencies. And so based on this analysis, then you can also estimate trajectories and action plans on how to reduce your impacts. And you can also track the progress that you make and valorize, of course, the actions you undertake. And this is all aligned also with the international frameworks and requirements I presented. So we ensure that the tool we develop and the solution we offer also will allow you to report on your impacts and dependencies on biodiversity and be aligned with all these frameworks. And just last word before moving into presenting more into detail the club, you have on this slide also an overview of how we can support you in your journey to Heurtin River's biodiversity laws, from understanding your impacts and dependencies to defining strategic actions to reduce your impacts and answering regulations and standards. So if you want more information on the GBS and on our offer, you can, of course, contact us. You will have all details at the end of the presentation. But let's stop now for the general information, and let's now dig into the B4B Plus Club. And I will give the floor to my 2 colleagues, Mathieu, Douziech, and Élisa, Magueur, to tell you a bit more about the club.
Thank you very much, Claire, for this very insightful introduction on biodiversity printing. So we'll now start presenting the business for Positive Biodiversity Club and its key highlights. So I will do this presentation with my colleague Mathieu. And just to start actually somewhere, so first, what is the B4B Plus Club? So it's a network that we have been launching in 2018, and which is today composed of more than 40 companies, financial institutions, consultancies, so different type of stakeholders that were originally gathered to co-build the Global Biodiversity Score, which is our biodiversity footprinting tool, but which actually is now covering more globally biodiversity footprinting and actually really help stakeholders keep track of the latest news and developments in this regard, and not only on the GBS. So part of the goal is first to understand what is biodiversity footprinting and how it is useful for you to to integrate it into your biodiversity strategy, but also to help you answer and understand the newest regulation, reporting requirements, and so on. So part of the goals of the club are really to help you understand how biodiversity footprint assessment tools and assessment exercises can serve corporate, but also investment decisions, and more globally, your biodiversity strategy. And it's also a way to help you, well, first anticipate, but also understand and address the quickly evolving regulation, reporting requirements, and also international frameworks, as we've been seeing last year with the new agreement. So now how it is concretely organized. So the club actually gathers a few times a year during various kind of events. And we organize through first some working groups. So we have 3 stakeholder-based working groups, one specifically for consultancies. We also have one dedicated to financial institutions and the last one for corporates. We also have one more international working group, which is actually covering all kind of stakeholders and which focuses on biodiversity printing, but for an international audience, because our historical working groups were in French. So this one is really open to non-French speaking members. And then we launched last year 2 new working groups, so more thematic based working groups. First one on biodiversity credits, because I guess you all seen that this topic emerged quite quickly last year and is now taking a lot of place. So it's a way to help our members understand this key challenge. And also another sectoral working groups on energy utilities. And the idea would be to cover more sectors in the future. So each working group is meeting twice a year, and we also have a bigger event, which is a plenary, which is really addressed to the top management teams of your company when you're a member. And we also have other events more based on technical support, for example, to use biodiversity printing tools, so technical support on the GBS. And ad hoc events. So for example, we can also organize specific webinars on dedicated topics. So last year we also organized some webinars apart from the working groups. So to give you some key figures for last year, so we have been organizing actually more than 10 working groups. So we had actually 12 working group meetings with our members. We also launched, as I just said, 2 new thematic working groups. We had some webinars on biodiversity printing, but also with cross topics. So, for example, we had a webinar with the World Benchmarking Alliance on the agriculture and agri-food sector on their benchmark work, which we are also conducting at CDC Biodiversité, and other webinars, for example, on the COP15 outcomes and so on. And we also sent more than 10 newsletters, which is I will detail the content of the club just after, but it's also part of what you get when you're a member, and it's quite regular news. So now more concretely, why joining the B4B Plus Club? So there are a few reasons, but to start with, first aspect is that it's a really global ecosystem. So the idea that it's a network of more than 40 members from different types. So as I was saying, here you can see all our current members. So you have different type of actors. So from consultancies to financial institutions to corporates, which covers actually different sectors. So it can go from energy utilities to cosmetics, such as L'Oréal, or agriculture and agri-food sector. So we have various kind of sectors that are represented within the club, which is very interesting in terms of biodiversity printing challenges that are behind. We also have different types of financial institutions, from asset manager to banks and so on, and consultancies that are also, from some of them, global biodiversity score assessors. So they are trained to perform some biodiversity footprint assessments. And you have some older members that are working with us on the GBS since the beginning. And we also have newest members that we welcome very much, that such as Cargill or Moonshot and many others. So it's really a big ecosystem representing different kind of stakeholders and sectors. So it's a good way to meet some corporate, some financial institutions that meet possibly similar challenges as you do. So then it's also this key aspect of networking, but also best practice sharing. So the idea is really that it's a network where you can share your experiences on the challenges you face, on how you actually handle biodiversity footprinting into your strategy. So it's a way to learn from the experience of other members, and maybe when you are starting your journey towards integrated biodiversity, it's a good way to, well, first seeing what others actually do. It's also a way to get some insights on how biodiversity footprint can serve your corporate and investment decision, as I was saying at the beginning. And you can also exchange on how club members actually cope with regulatory frameworks, emerging concepts such as biodiversity credits, as we will be seeing just later. And to do so, we have, during the working groups we organize, we always have some members or some stakeholders that are really working on biodiversity printing exercise, talking about their experiences. And we will have Lionel from Heurtin Investor who will tell us a bit more about this later today. But that really share the work they are undertaking, and it's a very good way to see how it can be done and what are actually the lessons learned when you conduct such exercises on biodiversity footprints. So then it's also a way to actually help you navigate the biodiversity footprint landscape with some insights. So you will have some regular news and literature monitoring, which will help you first anticipate and keep track of the latest regulation, reporting requirements, international initiatives, such as the Global Biodiversity Framework, but also all the work undertaken by the TNFD, SBTN, European regulations such as the CSRD, and so on. Also understand how biodiversity footprinting can feed the work of standardization initiatives and, for example, allow you to set science-based targets and trajectories. And it's also a way actually not to miss any open consultation on this, for example, standards or frameworks or work that are being undertaken, and get some inputs from CDC Biodiversité if you want to answer to this, and also support possibly a common position. And also identify, of course, and understand the existing biodiversity impact assessment tools. And to do so, the club will, as I was saying, share some regular newsletter. So on all these events, consultation, recent papers, and so on. It's also compulsory of some technical support. So it's a way to answer your question on the TNFD, CSRD, SBTN. So you have a specific service where you can ask for questions and get some answers. And then it's also a way to get some presentation by experts during all the club's events. So on various topics, from the Global Biodiversity Framework to Nature Positive to Nature Action 100, nature scenarios and stress tests. A lot of topics that are covered. And here you have some examples of speakers. So for example, we have speakers from IBAT, the TNFD, Align, Business for Nature, and a lot more. So we have different insights at each working group. Then it's also a way to innovate. So as part of the club, you can conduct case studies. So whether to test the Global Biodiversity Score, which is the biodiversity footprint printing tool, but also to take part in innovative footprinting topics. So for example, it can be a way to contribute to developing further some methodology for specific, for example, issues, challenges, or sectors. It can be, for example, we are very interested in working on regenerative agriculture. It can also be part of the working group on energy utilities to try to better assess the impact of specific utilities, such as hydropower and so on. And it can also be a way work by type of asset. So we also have been working on a private equity sector more specifically as part of the club. It's also a way to integrate existing frameworks and initiatives into your biodiversity printing exercise, so to make everything aligned. So, for example, we can integrate the TNFD LEAP approach within a case study. We can also work on how to set science-based targets, how to integrate existing data that you report, for example, to CDP. And we have been conducting that kind of work with the stakeholders, such as, for example, OFI, who conducting a TNFD pilot, but also Amundi, Crédit Agricole, and other stakeholders that have been working on CDP, the TNFD, or SBTN, for example. And finally, it's also a way to try the GBS to check first if it fits your needs for a future biodiversity footprint exercise, but also to contribute to its continuous development. So the idea is really to do this on a restricted perimeter of your activities, and it's a way to test our tool. We have actually a lot of members that already conducted some case studies and that actually help us to develop further the GBS. You have examples here, and all the case studies that are here are actually available on our website, so you can also have further detail on this. And of course, if you are interested in any case studies to work with us, you can contact us and we will explain a bit further what are the different criteria, what is a possible duration and budget for each case studies, because it really depends actually on the case studies you will conduct. For example, if it's only a screening of quantitative impacts or an innovative case studies, what is the assessed perimeter and what are the reporting levels, what is the quality of the data, and so on. So these are some elements that you can discuss with our team, and of course remain available should you want us to give you further detail. And now we will be digging a bit further into details of the biodiversity credit working group. I let my colleague Mathieu explain a bit more this really interesting work.
Thank you so much, Élisa. Indeed, Innovate also means follow key initiatives and key discussions that are been taking place at international level. And since COP15 ends the mention in the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, biodiversity credits are really becoming a hot topic at an innovative financing mechanism. Therefore, we have created last year a new working group dedicated to this issue. And this working group is gathering twice a year, and we are currently inviting many institutions, many actors, many initiatives that have positioned themselves on these innovative topics. So for instance, last year, we had the opportunity to welcome the World Economic Forum, which has been a pioneer around biodiversity credit discussion at the international level, but also a Natural England for their innovative regulation in England. And of course, the International Advisory Panel on Biodiversity Credits that is tackling biodiversity credits also. But we also want to dive in methodology and methodological works that have been emerging. So we are organizing many webinars, and as of today, we have organized 2 webinars and through our plan for this year, which are dedicated to specific methodologies, standard setter, or initiatives that have positioned themselves on these nascent markets. So to organize our working group, we wanted to give an overview of biodiversity credits. And for that, we have drawn a mapping of all the existing initiatives that have positioned themselves on this market, but we will also, and we are also following key consultation, key workshops, key publications that have been, that are organized by institutions such as the Biodiversity Credit Alliance, the World Economic Forum, or the International Advisory Panel on Biodiversity Credits. And so you can see a snapshot of the mapping we are built, and we are currently updating because this is a very moving market with many actors. So we try to give a comprehensive mapping of all the initiatives. So you, as member, you will also have access to this mapping and all the further information that enables us to better understand the markets. The second objective of this working group is also to make sure that the nascent biodiversity credit market follows key integrity principles. And for that, we think that standard setters have a crucial role. And we have built an evaluation grid to help market participants to assess to what extent a standard setter is following key criteria that makes them following a high integrity perspective. So for that, we want to assess each standard setters according to 28 criteria that have been divided into key teams, and we will rate them and share the results of this analysis with our members. And finally, because sometimes just conceptual discussions are not enough, we need some real perspective. We want to put this discussion around biodiversity credits on the field by conducting biodiversity credit pilots to assess the potential in terms of biodiversity gains. So beyond the mission of the club to innovate, we also want to build capacity on biodiversity footprinting. And for that, the B4B+ Club, for instance, offers you the possibility to try and use the global biodiversity score, either for internal purposes or commercial use. And for that, the B4B+ Club grants you one license for internal use or two nominative licenses for commercial use. Another aspect we want to build capacity on is technical assistance, because by carrying biodiversity footprint assessments might be challenging. We want to support you in doing so, and we want to help you solving any technical issues you might have through using the GBS, for instance. And we have implemented 5 hours of individual technical support for each of our members, as well as technical support webinars that are collective moments to ask questions and receive news about the tool. So this technical assistance gets the form of a ticket system that is available for our members, and so it includes the 5 individual 5 hours you have as a member, as well as additional if you need more, and it's make sure to help you if you have any issues. And so this ticket system is really our way as a B4B+ Club, to help you in your use of the Global Biodiversity Score. And finally, because sometimes using the Global Biodiversity Score or getting your hand on biodiversity footprinting needs some prerequisite, we help you to get trained around these topics by providing you trainings and a priority access to the fundamentals of biodiversity footprinting, about our trainings on using the Global Biodiversity Score, or our trainings for financial institutions. So all that, the Global Biodiversity Score, the technical assistance, and the trainings we offer enables you as B4B+ Club members to improve your way, your vision, your perspective around biodiversity footprinting. So that was just to zoom out of all the objective, of all the missions, of all the services provided by the B4B+ Club, and to give you an overview of the ecosystem around it. And maybe just to give you some practical modalities is to join the B4B+ Club. So it's a paid for club. So the membership is 8,500 euros if you want to join one working group and have access to the plenary, and it's 1,050 euro and 500 euros for any additional working groups. So if you want to learn more, if you want to have a discussion with us, if you want to dig in the B4B+ Club, our working groups, our innovative topics, do not hesitate to book a slot by scanning the QR code you have on the slide, or by going on the link that is on the chat. So we will be very happy, all the team, to answer your questions and to present you deeper the B4B+ Club. And if you are already convinced and want to join us, you can already fill in your membership form by scanning the QR code that is on the right side of the slide, and we will also get back to you very happily.
Thank you very much, Élisa and Mathieu, for your insights and presentation on the B4B+ Club. And I'm now really happy to welcome Lionel Heurtin from OFI Invest and Marie-Morgane Grebent from Decathlon, who are both members of the B4B+ Club, and who agreed to share the testimonies on their experience in the club. So welcome to both of you, and thanks a lot for accepting our invitation. So maybe to put a bit your membership into context, I will first ask you to tell us when you joined the B4B+ Club, and what were your motivation to join the club, and how this fits also with your biodiversity strategy. And so I will say ladies first, maybe with Marie-Morgane.
Yes, hello to all. Thanks for welcoming in this webinar. Very happy to share my experience with you today. So your first question is about when. To give you a bit of context, the biodiversity journey in Decathlon started in 2016 with the first with the opening of our first sword, which is certified lab signature biodiversity. But the topic was really addressed from 2019 in terms of methodology. When we started this journey, we started to explore tools and methodology which are available to measure our impact on biodiversity. And that's in this context that we identify the global biodiversity score as the most suitable for Decathlon to use. And then we decided to join the club, and I think it was around 2020. Why? For me, there are several reasons why we are interested in joining this club. The first one is to share together. When we started this journey, we realized that biodiversity was really an emerging topic for companies. And in that way, it's sometimes difficult for us to have strong convictions on some aspects. And this club gives us the opportunity to share our experience, progress, and difficulties. And so it's full of learnings for us. And that also help to enlighten some choices and decision in terms of methodology, for example. But it's also a way to know each other, as we are not so many to deal with the biodiversity topics within company, and so also offers the opportunity to get in touch if we have similar issues. The second reason is to get news and updates. You already talked about that during the previous presentation. It's thanks to the newsletter, especially, and also webinar and technical support, we can get news and opportunities, and that help us to keep an eye on what happens in terms of regulation, initiatives, events to join. And concerning the webinar and technical support, especially for Decathlon, the choice was to do the prints by ourselves. So it's not an easy task, and it's a way for us to learn about the updates of the GBS tool and also ask questions to make our footprint more relevant. Then contribute to the DBS development, as there are not so many tools available to help companies to measure their impacts on biodiversity. And as the DBS tool is still in development, we can contribute by our feedbacks to make the tool more relevant also and user-friendly for companies. And finally, it's also a way for us to support actions concerning the biodiversity. Last year, for example, we decided to sign a position letter, which was co-created by CDC Biodiversité and promoting the metric MSA and MSA.square kilometer as core disclosure metrics for the TNFD framework. And the next question was, how does it fit with your strategy? Our philosophy within Decathlon is to help to contribute to integrate more and more biodiversity within companies, and more globally to support our first global biodiversity framework. And that's why we are happy to share what we are doing on this topic in terms of pilot projects, in terms of footprint measurements, and so on. And joining the club gives us this opportunity to share our experience.
Thank you very much, Marie-Morgane, for sharing your experience. And so for you, Lionel, when did you join the club and why did you decide to join the club?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me at this webinar. I'm Lionel Heurtin. I'm a SRI analyst at Invest. I'm in charge of biodiversity analysis at my company. In September 2022, we became member of the B4B Plus Club. We were looking for help to better understand our biodiversity footprint and develop a trajectory to become net positive in terms of biodiversity impact. And the B4B Plus Club was the leading institution on this topic. We wanted also to join the finance working group to collaborate and to benefit from knowledge sharing.
Thanks a lot. Sorry, my bad. Thanks a lot, Lionel, for sharing your experience. And maybe back to you also to ask you what are the most relevant and useful aspects of the B4B Plus Club that you're using.
Yes, we like all aspects of the club. Thanks to the finance working group meetings, we have access to the new development and the latest technology research on the methodology associated with the Global Biodiversity Score. The club keeps us updated on the development of protocols and tools adapted to the needs and constraints of the business world. For instance, we had a nice coverage of the COP15 event in Montreal and an extended analysis of its consequences. The yearly plenary meetings offer access to a great panel of speakers who are the top guns in their area of expertise. It is a good moment to mingle and network as well. The club produces operational content delivered in the form of methodological sheets. We enjoy reading the past publication, les cahiers Biodiv 2050 Club, the biodiversity footprint business cases, and more recently, the fact sheet sectors. We attended the technical support event to ask our question and also to know which topics were of interest to other participants. Last but not least, we have a GBS license included in our membership. We have not used it so far, but one of my colleagues in our risk department has followed the GBS training level 2 and could perform a biodiversity footprint analysis regarding internal requests.
Okay, thanks a lot. And thanks also for mentioning some of our publications. So just for the audience at the end of the webinar, we will also give you a link where you can access the publication like the Cahier Biodiversité Lionel just talks about. And you, Marie-Morgane, so you already told us also a bit some of the services you use, but what are to you the most relevant and useful aspects of the club?
In fact, I believe that all the aspects are important for Decathlon, and Decathlon needs each of them at different level, at different moments. In fact, for example, when we are working on our footprint, we are really happy to ask for to request a technical support because it's a way to find solution when we face difficulties to run our footprint and also benefit from advices to make our measurements more relevant. But I also appreciate events and networking moments because it's an opportunity for me to meet colleagues and discuss about biodiversity as it's not so easy in other ways.
Thank you, Marie-Morgane. And if that's okay for you, we have also another question for you, which is maybe a bit more dedicated to one of the services you use and that you mentioned several times, but it's the technical support. And so we would like to hear a bit more also on how you use this service to help you in your biodiversity footprinting work.
Yes, I have in mind several concrete cases. I need to request the technical support in the past. The first one concerns methodology globally. I remember that I request some explanation about why are the results different when you use different ways to fill in your EPUN files, for example, and then that helps to choose the most relevant for your own organizations. More globally to know more about the methodology used to assess used by the GBS to assess impacts on biodiversity. Then also, as our choice within Decathlon is to do the biodiversity footprint assessment each year in order to make it thinner and thinner. We also use the technical support to get advices from the team to increase the reliability of our results. And then it's also really helpful to get good insight for the result analysis, because it's not an easy part, especially when your company has many activities and has a complex organization, as it is the case for Decathlon. And so advice provided by CDC Biodiversité can help us to make it clearer and finer.
Thanks a lot, Lionel, again for sharing also these insights. And so you Lionel, in the context of your membership in the club, you were involved in one of the case study we conducted. So we would be really happy to hear a bit more from you on this case study and how it was useful also for your work.
Yes, so I mean, it was a very rich experience, and it lasted for 6 months. So it will be difficult to put it in just a few minutes. But so we joined a pilot TNFD with CDC Biodiversity and UNEP-FI. We had 5 working meetings with CDC on the project. Rose, Julie, and Violette did the heavy lifting on this project. So we did follow the LEAV approach on a list of 10 companies from the food and beverage sector where the supply chain rely on agriculture, farming, and fisheries. And we decided to focus on to have one focus company, which was Danone. You can see it on the right side of this graph. Also, we had 6 calls with the team and partners involved with UNEP-FI pilots, including the team from Bankers Without Boundaries. If you can go to the next page. So we did follow the LEAP approach. You have the 4 pillars here: locate, evaluate, assess, prepare. So CDC Biodiversity used some tools that we didn't have the knowledge of, such as IBAT. And in evaluate, that was BIA and GBS, so to compute the dependencies and the impact. In the assess pillar, it was more a qualitative review. On the prepare, it was also a lot to do with governance within office, and so we had to ask ourselves also the right questions. If you want to move to the next slide. Well, here you've got some main keys, such as a project announcement, external and internal. Also, innovation, and you will see some of it just after. And also for us, it was a learning process how to report and to follow the TNFD framework. And we did some feedback regarding the standard, but you will have a slide just after. In terms of project announcement, external and internal, we did, if you can stay in the previous slide, we did 5 presentation of the result of the TNFD pilot in the first half of 2023, 3 within the club B4B+ at the Finance Value Chain and International Working Groups, and 2 others at the Institut de la Finance Durable on the WWF European Business and Biodiversity Forum. If you can go to the next page. So yes, so this is the CDC Biodiversity. They produced a report 110 pages long. So here is just an extract of the few pages. It's regarding the locate pillar, and it's a review of just one site, one brewery of Danone that is within a forest. And using IBAT, you've got access to several modules, which are the IUCN Red List analysis within 50 kilometers. You have also the protected area and key biodiversity areas. And what you can see is that this site has many exposure. And what you can tell is that the managing director of this site, if he wants to extend his site, probably will run into problem. Okay, if you move to the next page. So what was very interesting for us is that as the presenter has said, there is no information regarding the marine ecosystem today, but CDC Biodiversity was working on an overfishing indicator. And to us, it was very important. We're also a member of the Blue Finance Initiative. And they did share with us this indicator, the computation of it, and we did apply it on one stock of the portfolio, Nestlé, which has exposure to fish. So it's a first of its kind worldwide. So we are pleased to share this initiative regarding this overfishing module by CDC. If you want to move to the next page. Thank you. This is some of the lesson we learned from it, and feedback was made and given to the TNFD standard. To be brief, on the locate, it's difficult to find the asset level database because you need to have the list of the site exposed to biodiversity and also the kind of activity. And today, that kind of databases are very limited, except probably for some activities such as mining and extraction. The evaluate, the tool provided by BIA GBS is very powerful, and you don't have to look just at priority location. You can probably extend also your the analysis to other location. Assess, this is where we were looking at the quality of the biodiversity approach of companies, but you have to keep in mind that it's still work in progress for many companies. So even for our focus company, we're somewhat disappointed, but I'm under the impression that Danone has done a lot of improvement in the last year. On the prepare, we will look at differences between TNFD and the Article 29 that we have to fill in France, and we find some answers that were not. There were no, some questions that were not answered through the TNFD, and we let them know about this. If you move to the next page. Yes, and also I just wanted to add that this work just on 10 lines that gave us a lot of details regarding 30% of our MSA.km square computed at the company level for open-ended fund before we merged with Aviva France. So just by looking at 10 companies, it did help us tremendously to better understand our biodiversity footprint.
Thanks a lot to both of you for sharing your experience with the club, and so we are really happy also to continuing our work with you. So thanks, thank you very much. Before closing, we have a bit of time in case there is a question from the audience. So you can use the question and answer section on Zoom. Should you have any question, it can be for us, but also if you have specific questions for Marie-Morgane or Lionel, do not hesitate. So just checking also if there is any questions left. Okay, so maybe if not, so do not hesitate. If you still have questions, we will try to answer them either in the chat or directly orally. Maybe a few words also to conclude. So we wanted to give you also an overview of the upcoming events for the B4B Plus Club. So you have here on the slides the dates of all our upcoming working group meetings. I won't list them all. We will make sure that you have access also to this information. Maybe an important next step to keep in mind is that we have at the end of the month, on the 28th and 28th March of March, our next stakeholder-based working group. So one for consultants, one for more financial institution, and one more for companies and corporates. But you also have the dates of the work we have on biodiversity credits, and in particular with 2 webinars upcoming with Plan Vivo and Terrazos, who are 2 standard setters in the landscape, and also the dates of the energy utilities working group and our biodiversity footprinting working group. aside from the working group, also you will find the dates of our next plenary event, which will take place on the 2nd of October in Paris at the Caisse des Dépôts offices. And also you have here the date of the next technical support webinars that you heard about. The next one will be on the 23rd of April this year, and then we will have other sessions planned in June, September, and December. And so these events take place online. So we hope to see you at some of these upcoming events if you decide to join the club. And maybe a few words of also events we will organize outside the club. We have a webinar coming next week that we jointly organize with PwC, and it will be on the CSRD and how to report on your biodiversity impacts and dependencies in this context, but also how to use these reporting efforts as a lever of change for your organization. And the week after that, on the 20th of March, we will also organize a webinar to launch a new publication on how to apply the Global Biodiversity Score to financial players. So you have the link to register. You can also find these two events on our website. And so we would be happy to see you also at these upcoming events. And one last word also on a few other resources that might be useful for you. So as Lionel said, we have a few publications on the Global Biodiversity Score. We released really recently on the 1st of February the new version of our publication on the GBS, where we also explain all our latest developments in the Global Biodiversity Score. So you can find, you have the link here to find this publication online. And feel free also to check the previous publications we had on the topic. And we have several materials also that are available online related to our biodiversity footprinting work. And Mathieu told you a few words about it also, but if you want to better understand biodiversity footprint and how you can use the Global Biodiversity Score, we also have several offers of trainings. You can find some more information on our website. And so we have a training offer that goes from better understanding the fundamentals of biodiversity footprint to better understand how the GBS works, until mastering the GBS with the GBS level 2. And we also have dedicated training for financial institutions. So feel free also to contact us if you would like to have any information on these trainings. And so it's almost time to stop. But so if you have remaining questions, or if you would like to join the club but would like to have also a dedicated discussion with one of us, do not hesitate to book a slot to discuss with the B4B Plus Club team, which is composed of 4 people. So you have myself and also Élisa and Mathieu that you heard during the webinar. And we also have Anna Montagnier in the team. And so you can book a slot with any of us depending on your availability. So we look very much forward to hearing from you and to welcoming you in the club. We hope that you found this webinar useful. And so thanks a lot again for your participation, and have a good day.